At our new flat's housewarming party, I'd planned to share my pregnancy news. Instead, Jasper, my partner of 3 years, handed me a small, heavy wooden box. Inside, on shredded paper, was a folded parchment. It read in sweeping, elegant script, "I'm leaving you, you're a stagnant burden, and I deserve boundless horizons." Everyone in our living room watched as he turned and walked out, his laughter echoing. Friends looked at me, frozen, waiting for my collapse. I just smiled. He had no idea what I was truly capable of. I met Jasper 3 years ago. He was a charming, ambitious whirlwind, focused solely on me. Our relationship escalated quickly. Within a year, we found this bright, if slightly overpriced flat. Financially, it was a stretch, but we were young, optimistic. We had plans, a renovation, a sabbatical, children someday. Jasper, though, obsessed with appearances. Artisanal coffee, exclusive gallery openings, a curated social media presence. Those were glaring crimson flags I chose to ignore. About 4 months ago, I started feeling off. Constant queasiness, bone-deep exhaustion. I bought a home test, more to rule it out. We were careful, but not infallibly so. 2 vibrant pink lines stared back. I remember sitting on cool bathroom tiles, staring at that small plastic stick. I spent a solitary week processing the revelation before confiding in anyone. My dearest friend, Bronte, was the first. During our Tuesday evening catch-up, when I refused the usual craft ale, she immediately understood. She asked the right questions. What did I want? How might Jasper react? Practicalities. Health insurance, renovation timelines. Her calm practicality helped me organize my swirling thoughts. I decided to wait to tell Jasper. Our housewarming party, 3 weeks later, felt perfect. A fresh start, surrounded by everyone we held dear. I imagined the joy of sharing our news. Those weeks were a blend of anticipation and discomfort. My morning sickness was a constant affliction, a battle to hide my secret. He didn't seem to notice, preoccupied with work. He was coming home later, glued to his tablet, distant. I chalked it up to stress over his latest client project, the housewarming. Fell on a Saturday. I spent the morning arranging furniture and artisanal snacks, while Jasper supposedly collected the custom cake. Gone for nearly 4 hours. Guests arrived around 6. Bronte, Alastair, Sterling from the community garden, my cousin Lena, and Mariana, a former colleague of Jasper's. The party was in full swing. Good food, non-alcoholic sparkling cider for me, music, laughter. I planned to announce after the cake. I kept catching Bronte's eye. Her subtle nods fueled my nervousness and excitement. Around 9, Jasper clinked his champagne flute for attention. He launched into a theatrical speech praising me, holding my gaze with unsettling intensity. Then he handed me the small, heavy wooden box, wrapped with twine and lavender. The room fell silent, phones poised for a proposal. I remember a brief panic. Should I still announce the baby? Then I opened the box. No ring, just the folded parchment. I opened it, my brow furrowed in confusion, and read the words etched into my memory. "I'm leaving you, you're a stagnant burden, and I deserve boundless horizons. Your few belongings will be delivered by courier on Tuesday." I looked up at him, certain this was a cruel joke, but his expression had transformed, cold and dismissive. Then he spoke. We were done. It had been an interesting chapter, but he'd outgrown me. He laughed, his booming laugh. A few people joined in, believing this was an elaborate performance we'd orchestrated. But then Jasper turned, gave a slight, dismissive wave, and walked out without another word. The silence felt like a physical weight. I stood there, the damning note in hand, my pregnancy announcement unspoken. Friends looked from my face to the closed door, waiting for a "just kidding." That never came. Bronte was the first to react. She crossed the room swiftly, taking the note, reading it, then muttering he was an irredeemable cad. The room erupted in confusion, concern, and indignant outrage. And me? I just smiled. Not because I wasn't shattered and humiliated. I was both, but because in that surreal, painful moment, a crucial realization dawned. Jasper had no idea what storm was brewing. He thought he'd engineered a powerful, unburdened exit, but he didn't know I was carrying his child. He didn't know I'd discovered his hidden bank statements 2 weeks earlier, tucked in an old photo album. He didn't know I'd already seen cryptic texts on his smart ring while he showered. He didn't know I'm not the type to crumble, but to plan and strategize, so I smiled. I thanked everyone, assured them I was fine, though I wasn't, and not to worry. I even cut the celebratory cake Bronte had brought and passed out slices. As if toasting a new beginning, Mariana left, muttering about a sudden headache. Interesting timing. The others lingered, helping tidy scattered platters, offering spare rooms or shoulders to cry on. By midnight, everyone had departed except Bronte, who insisted on sleeping on my sofa. Once alone, the carefully constructed facade crumbled. The pregnancy, betrayal, humiliation. It all crashed down in a torrential wave. Bronte simply held me, allowing me to sob until the well of tears ran dry. She offered no empty platitudes. When I finally composed myself around 2 in the morning, I told Bronte about the baby. She wasn't surprised. My aversion to coffee and late-night snacks had given her a clue. Then I showed her the printed bank statements revealing mysterious withdrawals, designer purchases, and weekend getaways I wasn't part of. I scrolled through screenshots I'd captured of texts to M, filled with heart emojis and rendezvous plans. We knew M was Mariana, especially after her swift exit. We stayed up until dawn, huddled over tea, weighing every option, sketching a plan. Bronte cautiously inquired about telling Jasper about the impending arrival, but I was resolute. He'd discover it eventually, but on my terms. As for his dalliance and deceit, I wouldn't stoop to petty revenge, but the truth would surface. Bronte gazed at me with concern and fierce admiration for my strategy, commenting I was formidable with that determined glint in my eyes. I actually laughed then, a genuine laugh, the first since opening that dreadful box. As I lay in my newly quiet bed, alone for the first time in years, one hand resting protectively on my still flat abdomen, I made 2 solemn vows. One, to my unborn child, that I would provide a stable, loving home, no matter what, and one to myself, that I would emerge from this crucible stronger and more resilient than ever. Jasper believed his callous note ended our story, but if there's one thing I've gleaned from true crime podcasts I devour, it's that satisfying retribution requires patience, planning, and resolve. I possessed all 3. Next, I'll tell you about the immediate fallout. Confirming who he left me for, no shock, and the first signs his exit strategy was unraveling. Hey everyone, Lila here with the promised follow-up. Thanks for the supportive messages. It's wild how strangers can be kinder than people you've known for years. Picking up from the housewarming party from hell, where Jasper staged his dramatic exit, leaving me shell-shocked and secretly pregnant. The next morning, I woke to the scent of freshly brewed herbal tea and warm pancakes. Bronte was still there, constantly checking on me. She practically force-fed me, worried about the baby. I managed a few bites before the familiar wave of nausea hit. Jasper didn't return that Sunday. It was relief and torment. I spent most of the day cycling between disbelief, rage, and pragmatism. I made lists, financial documents to reorganize, antenatal appointments to book, trusted friends to eventually inform. My brain engaged a survival protocol, focusing on logistics to avoid the emotional maelstrom. Bronte helped me pack some of Jasper's belongings, just enough to signal he wasn't welcome back. My phone buzzed ceaselessly with messages from friends. Most were genuinely supportive, confused, and worried. A few were from superficial acquaintances, more interested in gossip, conspicuously absent. Mariana, remember her? The one with the sudden headache at the party? Exactly. Monday morning brought a stark dose of reality. I called in sick to my freelance design work, rare for me. I also scheduled an urgent doctor's appointment to confirm pregnancy and discuss options. Around noon, while researching tenant rights, since the flat lease had both our names, I received a text from Jasper. I'll be by at 7 p.m. to collect my things. Make sure you're not there. I stared at that message for 5 minutes before a simple, defiant response. No. No explanation, just an unshakable boundary. He immediately called. I immediately declined. Then I called Bronte, who instantly rallied our support system. By 6:30, my flat was filled with friends. Alistair, Sterling, Lena, who extended her visit, and steadfast allies, a human barricade. Jasper showed up at precisely 7. The look on his face when he saw our welcoming committee? Priceless. He tried to project injured authority, demanding to know what was happening, but Alistair, burly, handed him a small rucksack containing a few clothes and toiletries. Alistair informed him, his voice firm, that the rest of his possessions would be accessible when he acted with decency. For now, this was all he was getting. Jasper tried to catch my eye. He began to sputter about the absurdity, insisting he needed his belongings. I finally spoke, my voice cool and even. I told him he should consider himself fortunate I hadn't changed the locks. We could discuss the remainder of his items once I'd had time to process his housewarming gift. He started to argue, but my steady gaze deterred him. He snatched the rucksack and left, muttering about my perpetual need for an audience. After he departed, I cried again, not for him, but for the life I'd imagined, for shattered plans, for the child who deserved a kinderfather. The next morning, I called a technician and had the digital locks recoded. Now about Mariana, my suspicions peaked when she fled the party, but I needed confirmation. It arrived from an unexpected source. Sterling texted me Tuesday evening. Jasper and Mariana had been seen together frequently. He and Alistair had spotted them 2 months prior, dismissing it. He apologized for not telling me sooner. It felt like a double punch and vindication. I'd known Jasper was unfaithful. I just hadn't known with whom. Discovering it was Mariana, who'd shared meals in our home, accepted my friendship. That was a venomous betrayal. Instead of confronting either, I decided to bide my time. Observe, gather more information. Patience is a virtue in these complex scenarios. Over the next week, I focused on practical matters. I officially confirmed my pregnancy, 10 weeks along. I consulted a property lawyer about the flat lease and asset division. No messy divorce as we weren't married. I froze our joint accounts and opened a new personal one in my name. Protective measures. What I did not do was tell anyone else, besides Bronte, about the pregnancy. Not yet. It wasn't denial. It was strategy. I needed to arrange my ducks in a row. 2 weeks after the housewarming disaster, Jasper texted again, asking to talk and collect more belongings. I agreed to meet him at a public bench in the local square daytime on my terms. He looked dreadful, unshaven with dark circles and a crumpled shirt. He immediately launched into a half-hearted justification. He'd been feeling stifled, trapped, convinced a clean break would be less painful. I let him ramble before calmly asking if Mariana was bringing him the boundless horizons he supposedly deserved. He stumbled through weak denials. I cut him off. I told him I knew about Mariana, about the extravagant purchases, luxury weekend trips with money meant for the flat. I asked him to be unequivocally honest. He deflated like a punctured balloon. He attempted the "it's not what you think" line, but I cut him off. I told him he could collect the rest of his items that Saturday at 2 p.m. Alistair would supervise. After that, I didn't want to hear from him except through my lawyer. His voice squeaked when he repeated lawyer. He insisted we didn't need lawyers, could work things out ourselves. I remained calm. I told him we were far past that point. He'd made his intentions clear at the housewarming, and I was respecting his choice. As I moved to stand, he grabbed my wrist with desperate urgency. He asked about the flat, how I intended to afford it alone, claiming my freelance income barely covered half the rent. That's when it clicked. His true motive wasn't closure or possessions, but his dwindling finances. Jasper didn't know I'd covered over half the rent for the past year. His contract work had been increasingly sporadic, his finances more precarious. He'd lived beyond his means, leveraging my income as a safety net, presenting himself as the primary provider to friends in Mariana. I smiled sweetly and told him I'd manage perfectly, adding that unlike some dash, I saved money instead of squandering it on designer gifts and lavish getaways. I walked away from that public bench feeling lighter than I had in weeks, not because I'd won, but because I finally saw Jasper clearly, stripped of his facade. He valued superficial appearances, lied to inflate his success, and abandoned me when I no longer fit his self-serving narrative. Saturday arrived, and as arranged, Alistair supervised while Jasper collected a few more belongings. I made myself scarce, spending the day at a restorative prenatal yoga session. When I returned, the flat felt emptier, but profoundly more mine. I started reclaiming the space. Over the next few weeks, I settled into a new rhythm. Work, antenatal appointments, supplements, budgeting. I wasn't just surviving. I was actively constructing a future that looked dramatically different, not necessarily worse, than what I'd once envisioned. As for Jasper and Mariana, their whirlwind romance wasn't flourishing. Through the gossip grapevine, Sterling heard from his cousin. Mariana grew disillusioned with her prize. Jasper had painted a much rosier, financially stable picture of himself than reality permitted. The first significant crack appeared a month after our public square meeting. I was at the local market, comparing produce and supplements, when I bumped carts with Mariana. This time was different. She wasn't awkward or defensive. She seemed relieved to see me, inquiring about my pregnancy with authentic interest. Then she apologized, not a rushed, sorry not sorry apology, but a heartfelt expression of remorse, acknowledging the pain she'd caused. She explained Jasper had spun her the same convoluted narrative. We were basically over. I was holding him back from his entrepreneurial potential. The final twist? She'd discovered he was seeing another woman while dating her. The irony wasn't lost on us. We ended up getting coffee, herbal tea for me, and had this surreal, honest conversation about the man we both now perceived clearly. Not a monster, just a profoundly insecure individual who craved external validation, willing to lie, manipulate, and string people along. As we said our goodbyes, Mariana casually mentioned Jasper had been let go from his contract 2 weeks earlier. She thought I should know, as it impacted child support. I thanked her for the information and headed home. Processing this new development, I wasn't gleeful. It complicated things significantly, but I appreciated knowing. That evening, folding tiny cloth nappies and listening to my favorite true crime podcast, my doorbell chimed. I checked the peephole and saw Jasper standing there, sober, but devastated. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He started speaking immediately, asking if I'd heard about his contract termination, asserting it wasn't his fault. He was unfairly targeted. Then he asked if I'd seen Mariana recently, his tone laced with suspicion. I confirmed calmly that yes, we'd run into each other at Everything Mart. His face contorted, trying for nonchalance but looking constipated. He asked what we'd discussed and I simply stated, "You mostly." He did not appreciate that answer. Then he grew agitated, claiming we were conspiring against him, that everyone was turning on him as he tried his best. I gently reminded him that he, through his choices, engineered this difficult situation. And playing the victim wouldn't work with me. That's when he broke down, not dramatic tears but a quiet, crumpled admission. He said his life was falling apart. No contract, no partner, a tiny studio he could barely afford, and a baby he felt unprepared for. For a fleeting moment, I felt that old urge to comfort him, to fix things, but then I recalled the cold, searing words in that housewarming note. You're a stagnant burden. I deserve boundless horizons. Instead of comfort, I offered stark clarity. I told him he stood at a crossroads. Continue the self-pitying narrative and risk losing everything, or step up, take genuine responsibility, and begin the process of rebuilding. Jasper truly listened. When I finished, he nodded slowly and asked if we could talk inside. I hesitated, then agreed, but purposefully left the door slightly ajar, never fully enclosing myself with someone emotionally volatile. We sat at my small kitchen table, and he began to ask real, engaged questions about the baby. Health, developmental milestones, and delivery plans. I no longer harbored any romantic feelings for Jasper, but I did genuinely want him to be okay for our child's sake. Before he left, he promised to review the child support agreement and secure a new contract. He also, surprisingly, thanked me for not hating him. I told him hatred consumed too much energy. I was reserving mine for more important matters. Subsequent weeks brought subtle, significant transformations. Jasper secured a new contract, less lucrative but more stable. He signed the child support agreement. He even enrolled in a new Father's workshop. As my estimated due date drew nearer, things began to feel, not perfect, but functional. Jasper and I established a cautious co-parenting dynamic, built on boundaries and managed expectations. He attended antenatal appointments when invited. He even helped assemble the artisan cot when I admitted defeat with those minimalist instructions. Last week, at 7 months pregnant, I received a package from him. Inside was a leather-bound journal, simple and practical, accompanied by a note that read, "For your thoughts, plans, and true crime podcast notes. You were never a burden. I was too self-absorbed to see your value." I didn't respond. Some acknowledgments require no verbal reply, but I began using the journal to document this winding journey, so I can someday narrate to our child the messy, human story of their beginning. Next, I'll update you on the arrival, coming soon, and how Jasper grappled with fatherhood. People surprise you, sometimes with cruelty, sometimes with astonishing growth, always with messy humanity. Last update, hey everyone. It's been so long, many assumed I'd vanished. A lot has happened. Newborns don't leave you with free time or brain cells. The baby is officially here. Little Zara arrived 6 weeks ago, weighing 7 pounds 4 ounces with a full head of dark, wispy hair and, unfortunately, her father's distinctive chin, the only feature of his I'm not thrilled about. Labor was, well, birth vlogs did not prepare me for the raw reality. 32 hours. During those interminable contractions, I reflected on my transformation since that housewarming party. Then I stood in shock with a cruel note. Now, I was bringing a human into the world. Life comes fast. Jasper was present at the regional birthing center for Zara's arrival, which surprised everyone, including me. He showed up with an enormous, fluffy toy llama that wouldn't fit through the birthing suite door. Where did he think we'd store it? But he stayed through the anxious waiting, my less-than-ladylike vocalizations. Through it all, Bronte, however, was my anchor. When pain became intense and I thought I couldn't endure, she was there, hand gripping mine, reminding me I was doing it. Jasper mostly hovered awkwardly in the corner, scrolling distractedly on his phone, occasionally asking, with stilted politeness, if I needed anything. At least he was trying. When Zara made her grand entrance and they placed her on my chest, I experienced a moment of clarity. Everything I'd endured, heartache, betrayal, uncertainty, had culminated in her. And I wouldn't change the arduous journey. Jasper cried when he held her. Not a dramatic outpouring, but awkward, choked back weeping that made his nose run and face blotchy. It was the rawest emotion I'd ever witnessed from him. The first few weeks at home were a blur of nappy changes, feeding challenges, and sleep deprivation. My mother came to stay for 2 weeks, both an incredible blessing and a peculiar challenge. She kept reorganizing my kitchen cabinets, convinced my system made no logical sense. Jasper has been surprisingly present. Not live-in, but he comes by 3 times a week for scheduled visits. Sometimes he brings useful items, like eco-friendly nappies or a healthy meal. Other times, impractical baby clothes. Last week, a tiny embroidered velvet cape for a 6-week-old. Our co-parenting dynamic is a work in progress. We have moments of tension, especially when he's late or cancels last minute due to contract obligations. But we also have unexpected normal moments, like when he noticed I struggled with an engorged milk duct, researched remedies, and showed up with chilled cabbage leaves and a warm compress. Finances are manageable. Jasper pays child support consistently, and I work part-time managing social media for a small boutique. Not rich, but covering bills. My landlord let me renew the lease in just my name, a monumental victory. The flat feels entirely different now. Jasper's possessions are gone, replaced by baby paraphernalia. I repainted the living room this soft, calming ocean blue. It's astonishing how physical environment impacts emotional state. Mariana and I still occasionally cross paths. This city isn't vast. It's less awkward now, more like encountering a distant acquaintance. Last time, she was with a jovial, bearded gentleman who called her my muse every few seconds. She seemed content. I genuinely hope she is. As for Jasper, he's still navigating his struggles. His new contract isn't a dream job, according to Bronte, via Alastair and the city's gossip networks. He moved into a dreary, compact studio flat he gripes about. Sometimes, when he visits Zara, I catch him looking around my renovated place with an expression difficult to decipher. Wistfulness and regret. Jasper's personal growth is peculiar. He's seeing a life coach. Wow, the man who scoffed at self-help. He's been devouring parenting guides and joined a dad's collective forum. Sometimes I wonder if aliens abducted the real Jasper, leaving this introspective pod person. Anyway, my life has also taken unexpected turns. The part-time work materialized through Sterling, who recommended me to his sister's artisanal candle company. The work is engaging, the team lovely, and crucially, I can do it while Zara naps. And then there's Ethan. He's the local handyman who brought repair items and groceries during those chaotic postpartum weeks. At first, I barely registered him beyond a mumbled thank you and leave packages by the door. New mom zombie mode. But he started adding little handwritten notes to my deliveries, recommending local cafes or a corny dad joke that would make me snort with laughter. One afternoon, when I was particularly frayed, unshowered, pureed carrot in my hair, he dropped off my order and, seeing the overflowing recycle bin, asked if he could help take it out. I hesitated, strange man in my flat, but his gentle demeanor felt safe. As he helped put away supplies, we started talking. Turns out he's completing a degree in sustainable urban planning, doing handyman gigs for expenses. He has 2 younger nephews he cares for, which explains why he didn't flee from my disaster zone. We exchanged numbers, ostensibly in case of delivery issues. We knew it was fiction, but comfortable. We've been texting, and he's come by for herbal tea a few times. It's nothing serious. I'm in no rush to dive into another relationship, but it's undeniably nice to converse with an adult not primarily interested in designer nappies or sleep training. Last week, when Jasper came for his visit, Ethan was just departing. The look on Jasper's face was complicated. Later, he casually inquired who that guy was. I kept it vague, partly because there's not much to narrate. And frankly, it's not his concern. He made a few pointed comments about me moving on fast before catching himself and backing off. Bronte thinks I should go for it with Ethan, but I'm taking it day by day. After everything that's unfolded, I've learned that rushing into things rarely ends well. Besides, Zara is my paramount priority. Dating as a single mother is a different ballgame. I'm still learning the rules. Speaking of Bronte, she has been my unwavering constant. When I'm overwhelmed and convinced I'm failing at motherhood, she brings over iced coffee, my first true love, back in my life now that breastfeeding is established, and gently reminds me that all new parents grapple with these feelings. She takes Zara for a few hours sometimes, allowing me to shower, nap, or stare at a blank wall in silence. Yesterday was the true first anniversary of our new flat, 1 year since that fateful box changed everything. Instead of dwelling on trauma, I hosted a small gathering. Bronte and Alistair, Sterling, my cousin Lena, and cherished friends. Jasper stopped by briefly with a gift, a thoughtful, engraved wooden rattle with Zara's birth flower, but didn't linger. As I looked around my bright, reimagined flat, filled with people who genuinely cared, at my daughter sleeping peacefully in her compact bassinet, at the beautiful life I've constructed from the ashes of what I once wanted, I felt profound gratitude. I don't know what the future holds. Perhaps Ethan will evolve, or remain a brief chapter. Perhaps Jasper will continue to grow as a co-parent, or revert to old patterns. Perhaps I'll stay in this flat, or find a house with a yard for Zara. What I know with certainty is I am not the same woman who stood holding that cruel note last year. That woman was shattered but determined. This woman is rebuilt, stronger. So if there's any moral to this messy human story, it's that sometimes the worst thing can eventually lead to the best version of yourself. Not easily, but with time, patience, and resolve. P.S. That enormous, fluffy toy llama Jasper brought? It serves as a plush barricade for Zara on my bed. It found its purpose. For those asking what happened to the infamous housewarming note, I kept it. It's carefully stored in a memory box in Zara's closet, alongside her hospital bracelet, her first curl, and that positive pregnancy test. Someday, when she's old enough, we'll tell her the entire story, not to burden her, but because it's an intricate part of her history too.